Crucial talks on Syria getting underway in Geneva tonight. Labor MPs prepare to meet as Bill Shorten goes for the leadership.
I am running because I believe that Labor can win the next election.
And Australia's jobless rate at a 4-year high.
From SBS, this is World News Australia.
Good evening, I'm Ricardo Gonsalves.
A country still emerging from a decade of war pauses to remember the victims of 9/11. The 12th anniversary of the attacks, a moment to reflect on the conflicts of yesterday and the challenges of tomorrow.
Let us have the wisdom to know that while force is at times necessary, force alone cannot build the world we seek.
His words reflecting a conflicted administration torn between punishing Syria for its use of chemical weapons and allowing diplomacy one last shot.
Where are we? Where are we now?
As the President was speaking, the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council were meeting in New York to plot a way forward. Before them, a draft French resolution which would give Syria 15 days to make an exhaustive, complete and definitive declaration of the locations, amount and types of its chemical weapons. The regime would then have to give immediate, unconditional and unrestricted access to inspectors with the eventual aim of destroying the weapons. If it didn't, further necessary measures could be taken, including the use of force, which Russia opposes. Syria too appearing to throw a spanner in the works.
لم يتم التكلم عن تحريك وتسليم، هناك حديث عن إشراف دولي على هذه الأسلحة، وبالتالي هو عنوان، أما التفاصيل فكما قلت تترك لأصحاب الاختصاص.
His words playing into the hands of those advocating US military intervention.
I think that any initiative that would prevent this military action is worth exploring, but very briefly, and I frankly am extremely skeptical.
As is the Free Syrian Army, as the CIA starts to provide the rebels with light weapons and other munitions. Its leadership has tonight rejected the Russian proposal. Out of hand. Brian Thompson, World News Australia.
Labor MPs are gathering in Canberra for a caucus meeting tomorrow after power broker Bill Shorten launched his bid for the leadership, declaring the party can win the next election. Today, outgoing Prime Minister Kevin Rudd welcomed his successor to the Lodge before next week's formal transfer of power.
After all the acrimony, an outstretched hand. The man who lost greets the man who won at what will eventually be his new home, the Lodge.
It's an honour to be here, an extraordinary honour. Very few people obviously have the honour. Very interesting.
Kevin Rudd asked Tony Abbott if his daughters planned to live there too.
The short answer is yes, because they don't want to leave home.
Mr Abbott added until such time as they get married.
I know that feeling.
Then it was off for the tour.
See you guys, be good. We're going to have a cup of tea.
Tony Abbott's been taking calls from world leaders in a deliberate order. Today he spoke to US President Barack Obama, with Syria front and centre. Mr Abbott's told the President he favours chastising the Syrians without force, but that if force was necessary, he'd have Australia's strong diplomatic and political support. Last night he spoke to Sri Lanka's President about asylum seekers and Israel's Prime Minister. Incoming Foreign Minister Julie Bishop also took a call from her US counterpart John Kerry. They'll meet at the United Nations in New York later this month. On the Labor side, they're looking for a leader. Bill Shorten's a candidate.
I am running because I believe that Labor can win the next election.
Mr Shorten wants Tanya Plibersek as his deputy. He's expecting former Deputy Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will also run.
He should. I think he should. Obviously, that will be up to him to decide.
I believe I bring energy. I believe I bring optimism. I'm hungry for victory.
As for those attacking each other,
please go into an empty room and say it to no one.
Mr Shorten says Labor will oppose repealing the carbon tax. A leadership ballot would trigger the party's new rules, meaning the wider membership would also vote. That could leave Labor without a leader for more than a month.
These rules that have been put in place
will make us a laughing stock, an absolute laughing stock.
I think there's nothing wrong with a bit of democratic process. I'll be backing Bill Shorten.
Tony Abbott's designing his ministry, now without frontbencher Sophie Mirabella. Still fighting for her seat, she's bowed out of consideration. The new Prime Minister must have absolute freedom to select his new frontbench, she says. This is not about me, it's about our country. Government and opposition MPs will vote on their party's leadership in Canberra tomorrow. Karen Middleton, World News Australia.
The incoming coalition government has been presented with its first economic challenge since winning last weekend's election, creating more jobs. Australia's unemployment rate has risen to a 4-year high, raising expectation of another interest rate cut. Australia's jobless rate has been steadily rising since the beginning of 2012 and is now at its highest level since the middle of the global financial crisis in 2009. For the month of August, the unemployment rate rose to 5.8%, an increase of 0.1%. All up, nearly 11,000 jobs were lost, most of them part-time. The unemployment rate fell in South Australia, but the biggest increase came from Western Australia, up 0.4% to...
The authorities were expecting unrest, and sure enough, it erupted in and around the capital, Santiago. It happens at nearly every coup anniversary, but this time police put it down to troublemakers trying to take advantage of the 40th one. Augusto Pinochet might be dead, but this violence is a sign of the persistent divisions he left Chile. While police arrested demonstrators on the streets, President Sebastián Piñera called for national reconciliation at a multi-faith ceremony.
Y que llegó el tiempo, después de 40 años, no de olvidar, pero sí de superar los traumas del pasado.
The 1973 coup changed Chile. General Augusto Pinochet and his military regime ousted the then democratically elected president, Salvador Allende. The next 17 years of brutal military rule makes for grim reading. His regime left more than 3,000 people dead, some 40,000 tortured and nearly 1,200 people missing. General Pinochet died in 2006 without ever having gone to trial. Many Chileans who lived through the dictatorship still mourn Salvador Allende, but say it's now time on this 40th anniversary to put the past behind them.
Mucho dolor. También mucha esperanza que los que nos siguen atrás de nosotros, nuestros hijos y a nuestros nietos, las nuevas generaciones, puedan vivir en una patria libre.
The right-wing government and leftist opposition have held separate ceremonies to remember the coup, another sign of how the Pinochet years continue to divide Chile. Hannah Balsher, World News Australia.
In other world news, the Indonesian military has warned it will block an Australian boat carrying pro-independence activists to Indonesian Papua. The so-called Freedom Flotilla is attempting to cross into Indonesian waters despite warnings to abandon the mission. The group is making the trip to support the struggle for Papuan independence from Indonesia. The Dutch ambassador to Indonesia has formally apologised for a series of summary executions carried out by the Dutch army during the colonial era. The Netherlands had already apologised and paid compensation in certain specific cases, but this was the first general apology. The Dutch Prime Minister also announced that over $26,000 would be paid to widows of each victim killed in Sulawesi and West Java. And police at an airport in Colombia have arrested a Canadian woman who allegedly tried to smuggle cocaine in a fake pregnant belly. Authorities say the woman acted aggressively when a female officer asked how far along she was. It aroused suspicion, and after performing a body search, police found 2 sealed bags containing 2 kilograms of the drug, causing gusty winds, showers and snow in Victoria and Tasmania, while a trough brings storms to South Australia. Wind and rain is gradually easing in Western Australia as the low moves further east. In the major centres, showers for Brisbane with a top of 27 degrees, showers too for Sydney 19, showers in Melbourne and Adelaide, storms for Perth. It'll be sunny in Darwin with a high of 33 degrees, sunny in Hobart also, a top of 13. Looking further afield, partly cloudy for Auckland and Christchurch, showers for Wellington with a top of 14, showers too for Apia. In Southeast Asia, rain in Phnom Penh and Jakarta, thunder for Bangkok, damp in Denpasar, Kuala Lumpur. It'll be rainy too in Singapore with a top of 32 degrees. Further north, where Hong Kong and Taipei can expect drizzle, cloudy in Beijing and Tokyo, wet in Seoul and Shanghai. Heading west, fine weather for Baghdad, Beirut and Jerusalem, drizzle in Mumbai, cloud in Delhi and Tehran, rain for Islamabad. To Europe and showers for Belgrade and Paris, cloudy in Berlin and Rome, fine for Madrid and Moscow, wet in London. In Africa, thunder for Johannesburg, rain in Casablanca and Lagos, partly cloudy for Dakar and Nairobi, a few showers for Addis Ababa. In South America, fog for Rio de Janeiro, rain in Caracas, fine for La Paz, storms in Buenos Aires, partly cloudy for Santiago. And for North America, cloudy in Chicago and Los Angeles, thunder for New York, showers in Washington DC and fine in Vancouver. And that is the world this Thursday. I'm Ricardo Gonçalves. I'll see you at the same time tomorrow. Good night.